It's very likely that you or someone that you care about might be taking one of these right now. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Joseph Witt-Doerring. I'm a doctor and I used to work at the FDA and in the pharmaceutical industry as a drug safety expert. So let's get into it. The first drugs that we're going to talk about are the antidepressants. So these are drugs like the SSRIs, things like Lexapro and Prozac, and they're used for treating depression, bipolar, and anxiety. Now, while these medications are often experienced as being calming and therapeutic by many, some people will have paradoxical reactions, meaning that they become more anxious or agitated, or in the worst cases, sometimes even suicidal, homicidal, or even psychotic. Now, the internet is full of stories about these drugs being involved in things like suicides and school shootings, and often the most well-known cases involve a drug called Paxil, which is an SSRI. And two notable cases really come to mind for me. One is the case of David Carmichael, who killed his 11-year-old son accidentally during a Paxil-induced psychotic episode. Later on, this case would go on to be dismissed by the Supreme Court of Ontario due to clear evidence that this was drug-related. And the other case comes from close to me. I'm in Utah, but over in Wyoming, one state over, Donald Schell accidentally killed his wife, daughter, and his granddaughter, and then himself when he had a psychotic reaction to Paxil as well. Donald Schell's son-in-law, who lost his wife, actually went on to successfully sue SmithKline for failure to warn about these types of side effects with their drug Paxil. Now, over the last couple decades, there have been thousands of cases just like Donald's and David's, and these ultimately resulted in the boxed warning that goes on all antidepressants, which warn about the risk of suicidal behavior and behavioral changes on these drugs. So moving on from some of these serious behavioral problems these drugs can cause, the other thing that I want to mention about antidepressants is that they can also cause something called PSSD or post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. Now, over the last several decades, thousands of people have been coming forward and sharing that the sexual problems that they developed on these drugs have not fully resolved now that they've come off of them. And some people are even reporting serious cognitive damage from these medications. This has prompted regulators in Europe, Australia, Canada, and Hong Kong to update the labeling on all of these drugs to warn about these persistent sexual problems that are not going away when people come off these drugs. Although this was under-recognized for a long time, finally it's getting some of the attention it deserves, and it has been covered in news outlets like the New York Times.